I've just spent the last 20 minutes on Facebook chatting to some people in response to a post that I put up, and I must add here, I hate Facebook. It's rare. I use it for my marketing. I hate the personal stuff on Facebook, but it's quite good for this kind of stuff. I posted something and basically said, I need to get my hands on a Defender, the 2020 model Defender, because I need to do a follow-up on my really popular hype versus reality review of the Defender. And I got a whole lot of people joining in on the chat. Why can't you get one? And things like that. And why don't you do this? And even a good suggestion, actually go and hire one when they're available. Lots and lots of comments. And one of them really struck home. I'm Andrew St Pierre White. Join me as I share my passion for building four-wheel drive trucks and travelling to the remotest parts of the world. The comment was that he had seen some UK reviews and was really impressed. He said, I am really impressed. And my question to that is, what were you impressed with? Were you impressed with the reports? Were you impressed with the vehicle? Or were you impressed with how much the reviewers were honest, or how much the reviewers loved it? Very recently in Namibia, Land Rover, in conjunction with Land Rover South Africa, set up basically had a press event with the new Defender. Now, let me explain to you why press events work so well. These, in this particular case, and I've been to many of them, not for several years, I should add, but when I was on the list, and that list only was probably 4 or 5 manufacturers and went down to eventually 0. They invite journalists they know, and journalists that have good audiences, but most of all, journalists they trust. Because, I mean, this, in all fairness to them, they want to make sure that they get good for bang for their buck. All airfares are always business class. Okay, and in this particular case, in Namibia, they came from all over the world. Business class. Nice hotels. In the case of northern Namibia, these would not have been hotels. That area they went to in Namibia, I know very well. I've been there 10 times. These would have been luxury lodges. Now, those luxury lodges, I can tell you now, are no less than $1,000 US a night. All right, that's the starting point. All right, the budget lodges are that much. So they would probably be each night between $1,000 and $2,000 US a night. And the one that done them, they also have conference facilities. And this is why hotels have conference facilities. They would in those lodges too, but they're always outdoor and they would be very African. It'd be wonderful, wonderful. And it's a wonderful experience. This type of thing. This was Gwyn and I in 2004 on an Isuzu launch in Namibia. This small village was constructed specially in a very remote part of the Namib Desert. We were flown in and then drove the last 3 hours to the camp in the new product. With unlimited alcohol, the entertainment lasted through the night. And of course they have to make sure it's a wonderful experience because, well, what the journalists will write will be an impression. It'll be an impression of certainly the vehicle, but it'll be an altogether, all-encompassing thing, won't it? If you feed them horrible food, you're going to not get as good a review of the product as if you feed them oysters from the Namibian coast. So of course they do this, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the reason why I'm saying this is that when you're reading the reviews and when you are digesting the summary from those journalists, you remember the journalists' opinions are not purchased. Mostly they're not bought. They're not told what to write. Okay, that wouldn't happen in all the good magazines. They're not told what to write. Are they influenced? Oh yes. Now this is how they are influenced. Apart from the flights and the food and the lodges and everything, apart from that, they are influenced by the fact that the course that they will be driving on has been driven before, has been checked that the vehicles can manage it with reasonable ease, and that they know that at the end of the day, the chances of all of the journalists having a really, really good time is very, very high. Okay? They know this. Okay? They don't take chances with $1 million budget to promote a new vehicle. They don't take chances. And it's one of the reasons why journalists such as myself are never invited to these things. We're too high risk.
Andrew, I need to interrupt you. All right? You just said that they always do courses that they've always tested and that kind of thing. Give Land Rover their due. The Land Rover Defender was not done on a course. It was done on in a wilderness area. Van Zijl's Pass, going down into the Marianneflas in northern Namibia.
Named after a Dutch explorer who apparently drove the route with Himba tribesmen and a Model T Ford in 1920. At least that's what I can find out about it. Right, now to help him, direct him down here. What I do know is that it drops close to 2,000 feet and is listed on the dangerousroads.org website as one of the world's most spectacular and dangerous roads.
You need a proper four-wheel drive. Now I've seen all kinds of vehicles go down there, including new discoveries, old discoveries. Nevertheless, this was a tough test. I give Land Rover that.
Nearly 7 hours.
But I've started to read now the reviews based on that experience. And they're all saying how good the ride is. They're all saying how good it is off-road. Okay, nothing surprising there. Nobody has mentioned range. Nobody has mentioned anything about its ability to carry stuff. The payload is mentioned a few times, but those vehicles, they're not fully equipped long-distance touring vehicles because they're going from camp to camp to camp to camp or whatever. They're not heavily laden, as you would be on an expedition. Okay, and the reviews say how good it is off-road. I expect it to be very good off-road. But now tell me something. When have you ever, I'm talking about everybody watching this video, ever read a review on a four-wheel drive where they didn't use words like unstoppable? They're meaningless now. It's absolutely meaningless because every four-wheel drive is unstoppable. One of the reviews even praised Land Rover's reliability. And my reaction to that was because they were saying, okay, well, their reliability thing wasn't that good and it's much better now. And my reaction to that is, did you have nothing else good to say about the car?
And were there any tyre failures with the low-profile tyres? Now that would be useful information. So I look at the images and the pictures and some of the shots were really quite dramatic. There were some dramatic shots of some river crossings. And at this time of year, this is February, it's now March, it was done in February, it would have been blindingly hot. Why did they choose February? Well, I guess because of the timing of the release of the vehicle, because February is it's the wet season, but it is stupefyingly hot in that part of the world. So if they got anything less than 35 degrees Celsius each day, they were lucky. But the rivers are also flowing because the rainy season starts in January, February, March is the rainy season. And in the desert areas of northern Namibia, they have flash floods. And they actually filmed one of the Defenders being driven through and pulled through, and they did all of these. All of the people involved, I could see by the trailing lines, the winch lines, and all of the things that they were doing with these vehicles, the people running this, they were no idiots. They weren't fools. They knew what they were doing. So now you've got good people, good journalists that are influenced to a degree, writing about this vehicle. And how do you know to trust it? It's really, really difficult to know whether to trust it. And my advice is that when you read something negative, amplify it a bit. And when you read about something positive, pull it down a bit. And when you read something about a wow, then it's probably pretty accurate. Because the general thing with a journalist writing something like that, while they've been influenced, if there's something that's annoyed them and thinks it's not very, very good, they'll mention it. They might mention it. The good ones will mention it, and they won't say, this is a game changer, I absolutely flippin' hate that, and I hate it, and it's terrible. They'll never do that. Okay, if they think of something as a game changer and actually I think the vehicle is terrible, they will never ever say that. But how often is that likely? It's possible. It is possible. And I had this problem when I first drove the Land Rover Discovery 2. I was given a manual version and I took it off-road, and I was given it on my own. I didn't go to the launch. They didn't do a big launch. They did a series of launches at the training centers. And I hated it to the point where I said I would never buy this car because it is hopeless off-road. Because they had, in their stupidity, in my opinion, removed the center differential lock from the system, and it relied on a traction control system which was very poor. Very poor. In fact, it required the vehicle's wheels to spin to such a degree that it would actually dig holes in the ground before the traction would actually start being transferred to the different parts and the different wheels and the vehicle. So the vehicle actually was not even, it was actually a one-wheel drive. It was hopeless off-road. It was really bad. And I pointed this out, and they got very angry with me, and they said, can we send you for training? And I said, absolutely. And they inferred in their response, which they did publicly, that I had no idea what I was doing, and that I couldn't drive the thing. And I was then taken to a press launch. It was one of these mini launches. And they had this obstacle course. And I'd give them that, a tough obstacle course. I give them that. But they only had autos, no manuals. Because the auto had a central locker, viscous coupling center locker. And the vehicles actually did really quite well. And you could see the traction control working, even though it had this locker. So it was impressive. Well, that's what they do. The manufacturers will set out a course, no matter where they are, to try and impress the journalist the most. That's their job. All right? Not to give the journalists a fair look, to place the vehicle in situations and the journos in situations where the vehicle will shine the most. And that's all they do. And they avoid anything where the vehicle wouldn't shine. They actively avoid it. In this particular case, I drove the Discovery 2 Auto, and the guy's name was Tim, and he said, what do you think now? I said, I haven't changed my mind a bit. And he said, what do you mean? It's amazing. I said, you've given me an automatic. I made a very, very clear distinction in my review that what I was driving was the manual. So give me a manual. Well, we don't have a manual here. All right, fine. At the end of the day, I said to him, Tim, could you do me a favor? I want to drive this course in another vehicle, in some other vehicle. He said, what other vehicle? I said, I want that one over there. And it was a Land Rover Discovery 1. And I said, and I'm going to lock the center differential. He said to me, Andrew, can you do me a favor? Could you just not say anything for now, and when all of the other guys are in the pub, you and I will go and drive it around. I tell you now, that Discovery 1 drove around that course with less wheel spin than the Discovery 2 Auto. It was better off-road. It just was, because the traction control was rubbish. And of course, since then, Discovery 3, Discovery 4, Discovery 5, and no doubt the new Defender, the traction control is going to be spectacularly good, because it is. It's an amazing thing to me on how gullible the audience can be if they enjoy a particular brand. The brand can do no wrong. These are corporate companies in the business of making money. How, please tell me how, do you fall in love with them? Occasionally, yes, we fall in love with a product. Why? Because it's a product that just gives us so much. Fantastic, wonderful. Why pay homage and bow down and genuflect to the massive corporate giants that build them? I just don't get it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed my little rant. Oh, and lastly, if you are in Australia and you get your hands on a Land Rover Defender 2020 model, please get in touch with me. I will fly over, travel restrictions notwithstanding. I will fly to your place. We can spend a day together, and I'm gonna, now here's the caveat in this. You can't tell me what to say. Otherwise, if you're in love with Land Rover and Land Rover is what you pay homage to every night, yeah, don't get hold of me. If you are inquisitive like me and want to know what this vehicle really is all about, then please get hold of me so I can get my hands on a Defender, because I promise you there is no ways Land Rover will ever let me get my hands on that car. Or if you're from Land Rover and I'm wrong, then I'll admit it freely right here. Thank you again for watching.